This building, this area, you see the road up here? So if you're heading up this way, anything on the left is still precinct 4, and on the right is precinct. Or if you're heading down, anything on the right is precinct 4, and then on the left is precinct 3. And then precinct 5, you have family living in Cagman? Okay. Precinct 5, we have 2 representatives. We have Representative Angelo Camacho and Representative TJ Manglonia. I'm sure they will be making their way here. So with all that numbers, how many members do you think we have in the House? Are you guys keeping track? Okay. 6 plus 2 is what? 8 plus 6 is what? 14 plus 2 is? 16 plus 2 is? And 18 plus 2 is 20. Okay, now I kind of tricked you guys there. I forgot to mention the other two. Tinian and Rhoda each has 1 seat. So on Tinian, we have Representative Patrick and Nicholas. And in Rhoda, we have Representative Julie Ogle from Rhoda. So a total of 20 seats. The Constitution only allows us to have 20 members in the House, which is the max, until the event that we can settle at least 1,000 people up in the Northern Islands, then maybe 1 seat can open here in the House and we can have 21 members. Can anybody guess how many members we have in the Senate? Okay, while you guys are still thinking, just a little house rules. If you need to talk, you see this? You see the talk button? Just press it once, and when the light's on, that means the microphone is on, and you guys can go ahead and speak into it. And when you're done, just press it once, the light goes off, and so others can talk. I see that you guys have a list of questions, so feel free at any time to ask these questions. At any time. Raise your hands. Okay? Yes, ma'am. 3. Close enough. Anybody else want to take a guess? Yes, sir. 4. Getting closer. Yes. 9. Correct. 9. There are 9 members in the Senate. So there are 9 members in the Senate, and it is broken down equally. Saipan and the Northern Islands gets 3 senators. Tinian and Agigan gets 3 senators, and Rhoda gets 3 senators. Again, in the event that 1,000 people could be settled up in the Northern Islands, another 3 seats will open in the Senate, and 1 seat will open in the House. So we modeled it, our forefathers modeled it, just like in the United States. The House of Representatives, each state is made up, the number of seats is based on the population, but in the Senate, everybody gets an equal representation up there. Any questions so far? Okay, Rep Manny, you want to take it from here?
All right. So, what class are you guys in? Social studies, or just okay? For today, this is social studies, right, or civics?
Yes.
How many branches of government do we have in the CNMI or the United States? Okay, I'm gonna go with you first. Go ahead and press that.
3.
Okay, next question. What are those 3 branches? Anybody? You want to get it? Okay, we'll go there.
Judicial.
Okay, that's 1 branch. There's 2 more.
Legislative
Okay.
and executive.
All right, she took the 2. So why do you guys think they created 3 branches of government? And they meaning because our government is modeled after the U.S. government. Founding fathers of America, why did they create 3 branches?
Do not let only one branch get too powerful.
Correct. So a lot of countries in the world like how this evolved is back then, like a lot of people lived in England, and England was run by a king, and the you know the people of England got tired of that because the king started raising taxes and just made living a lot harder for the common people. So a group of common people sailed to America, and that's where it started. Like they started the Constitution and everything. So realizing that they don't ever want to go back to the a kingdom style of government or a dictatorship. That's why we have three branches, so everyone can power check each other, right? So I know you guys know there's a lot happening last year with impeachment and everything, and that is an example of the three branches of power or three branches of government exercising their equal, separate but equal powers. Okay. So why do you think that's important to have? Sir, I actually answered that question. um, Anyone have any other questions? No.
What does it take to be a governor, lieutenant governor, representative, or senator?
I am gonna give that to our speaker because there's a lot of details.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Before we move forward, I also want to recognize the presence of our floor leader, the representative from Precinct 1, Representative Ed Probst. Yeah, he's one of the 6 representatives in your precinct. He also brought Rosie. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, so your question is, what does it take to become a governor, lieutenant governor, and a representative? Okay, just to keep it simple, there's an age requirement. To run for governor or lieutenant governor, you have to be at least 35 years of age. Of course, a U.S. citizen, a clean criminal background. You have to have lived in the CNMI for a couple years straight. And if you're going to run for governor or lieutenant governor, you have to find a partner to run with. You cannot just run alone. Some countries, they allow where the president can run on his or her own, and then the vice president also on their own. And then whoever wins, that's the team. Now, to run in the House, the age requirement, you have to be at least 21 years of age. Again, just like the requirements for the governor and lieutenant governor, clean background, criminal background. In the House, you run in different precincts. So you have to be living in the precinct that you want to represent. And again, U.S. citizen, you have to be living in the CNMI and the precinct that you want to run and represent for a certain period of time. Now, the process of running for office, we'll just take the House, for example. There was a confusion in this last election, but normally you start out by getting a petition from the Election Commission and get it going around. You have to get at least 50 signatures of those that are legally able to vote in your precinct. And then after that, you turn that in, they certify you, and then the process goes on until election. And then the people, if you get enough votes to win one of the 6 seats, like we'll say Precinct 3, for example, we have 6 seats, then you're in as a representative. With the governor, it is CNMI wide. There's also the option of, well, not an option, but if you're living in the States or you're serving in the military, you can still vote off island. And those votes do count. Good. Thank you, sir. That's a good question. I also like to recognize Representative Nanita Yangtamai from Precinct 3. Yeah, precinct 3. All right. Anybody else have questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll ask. Go ahead, ma'am.
How much do you make a year?
How much do we make a year? 32,000 a year. 32,000 a year. Yes. Not too long ago we were making 39, but then again, like Rep Manny brought up the three branches of government, we were power checked by the judicial branch. And well, it was an issue, and just like what the judicial branch does is they interpret the law, and unfortunately, we were cut less, but we make 32,000 a year. You guys want to know how much the governor makes? The governor makes 120,000 a year. Right? What do you think is higher, 32 or 120? Right on. So what do you guys want to run for? House of Rep or governor? All right. Please. Yes, sir.
What are your duties and responsibilities?
What are our duties and responsibilities? Well, to keep it simple, we represent the community. As much as we like to represent the CNMI as a whole, each of us prioritize our precinct first. So we basically, this is where the laws start in terms of creating laws that involve the budget, laws as simple as saying you have to stop at a stop sign, things like that. It starts here. But it's not only limited to that. This right here is also our duties and responsibilities. We also go out to the public and do the extra work of not just legislation, but I'm sure you've seen your representatives go to your school, donate supplies, clean around the roads, beautify the beaches, things like that. So yeah, coming out to your classrooms, or like you students coming up here to learn more about your government, that's part of our duties and responsibilities as well. Yes, sir.
What is the biggest challenge the CMI is facing today?
What is the biggest challenge the CNMI is facing today? I've told the other group this, and again, if my colleagues want to chime in, money is the issue right now. Not too long ago, I'm sure you remember, we had stimulus, we had CUC vouchers, we had money flowing through the main source of funding, which is ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Unfortunately, that money is gone. So it's a big challenge. Folks in our government were funded 20% through that funding source, and now to not have that funding source means they're going to lose hours and they're going to get their salary cut. We are trying our best right now to find that balance so that the pain, we don't want to see our people suffer. So we're trying our best to find that balance where the tough decision that we have to make will not hurt as much. But that is the biggest challenge. Funding for a lot of things. We have projects also through that funding source that may or may not continue, that could have benefited the community. Yes, ma'am.
Are we affected by what's happening between the United States, Russia, and China?
Yes, very much so. If you notice, the CNMI is located in the middle of the ocean. We don't have another state, or we're not connected to another country just like the United States. What country is the United States connected to in the south? Do you know? How many of you guys like tacos? Mexico, good, good. Yes, see? We're in the middle of nowhere. So we have to import a lot of things, even workers to build our hotels and things like that. So anything that happens around the world, especially where we import from, is going to affect us. Even decisions made in U.S. Congress can affect us. With China, and how many of you have heard of the war in Ukraine? Yep. So things like that affect us. The price of fuel goes up, and when the price of fuel goes up, everything goes up. Representative Probst was asking the students from yesterday, how much are soft drinks now at the store? Anybody knows? Or if you're gonna buy high C, how much is it now? Or you don't bother because your parents buy it for you. $1 for high C. Wow. You know, back in my day, it was 50 cents to buy that big one, especially when they started it. Only 50 cents. So now it's $1. And yesterday, one student said like a can of soda now it's like $1.25. Yep. Again, back in my day, probably the most expensive store I've seen that will sell a can of Coke was 65 cents. So things are going up. And again, it's what's happening in around the world that affects us. Yes, sir.
Did they change the
Go ahead. Go ahead.
did they switch the prices?
Did they switch the prices? Well, again, as mentioned, like when the price of gas goes up, everything goes up. Now, there are stores that will take advantage of the situation and make and raise prices a lot higher than it should be raised, which is not right. But we have an attorney general's office. They have the consumer protection, and they monitor stores that do this. I've seen situations where after a storm, a store jacks up the price, which is not right because when we're hit with a storm, we need to buy food for our families, and it's not right to take advantage of the situation by making a can of spam $10. I know that's just a ridiculous example, but there have been stores that have done that. Yes, any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are some laws that protect the indigenous people of Saipan?
Yes, want to take.
Okay, so for example, one law that most people know is Article 12. Okay, Article 12 is a land alienation clause in our covenant agreement with the United States. And what our CNMI founding fathers, basically the people that were drafting our government, our political status, what they were concerned about is like Saipan is really small. Tinian's really small, Rhoda's really small. An investor at any time can come in and buy out all the landmass. And then where does that put us? We become homeless. So the whole concept of Article 12 is the land or any basically land ownership is restricted to people of Northern Marianas descent. So a lot of places, like for example in Hawaii, they don't have Article 12, and you see a lot of Hawaiians being having to move out because the cost of living in Hawaii is high. So a lot of Hawaiians are like moving to states like the Pacific Northwest where it's more affordable. So because of Article 12, it kind of protects the indigenous population from having to be in that situation. Okay. Okay, sure.
After typhoons or big storms, how does the office plan to clean up everything and help the people?
So it's pretty much our government. It's like teamwork, right? The legislative branch is responsible for creating laws. The executive branch is responsible for executing laws and programs. And the judicial branch is responsible for interpreting to make sure the laws that we create and the laws that the governor signs and executes is constitutional, right? So, for example, when it comes to storms, we always want to make sure that we take a proactive approach. I'll give an example. Recently, like if you look at all the telephone poles after Typhoon Yutu, did we put up wooden telephone poles or utility poles? We didn't, right? We're like, we don't want to be in that situation again. So CUC and the governor's office and everyone involved decided to have the hardened, the concrete telephone poles so we won't have that issue. In Tinian, there was a plan to do underground power. So, in response, like how do we help prepare for storms or everyone works together from the mayor's office to the governor's office, but as much as possible, we try to take a proactive approach so that when we get hit by a storm, we don't suffer as we did before.
Thank you. Good question. And it's also the teamwork goes beyond the government, especially when the governor declares a state of emergency or state of disaster. That's when the federal aid kicks in. So we have the Army Corps of Engineers, we have other folks from the military come in, and then other aides from around the world also come in to help. Yes, ma'am.
Why did you decide to run for office?
Why did I decide to run for office? Before I move forward, I want to recognize Representative Malcolm Omar. He is from Precinct 4, and he chairs the Committee on Health and Welfare. Yeah. You want to take this? Why did you run for? What made you want to run for office? Here you go.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Are you excited that it's the weekend?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited too. No? Well, I decided to run because I want to help people. Before I was doing this work, I was working with nonprofit organizations that promoted equality, justice, fairness. And I thought that taking a leap of faith and running to be a congressperson might impact our people. And I just wanted to help people. It's not really about the money sometimes, but if you find your passion and what makes you happy, then that is very fulfilling. And so that's where I find my fulfillment, and that's why I decided to run, because I find this deep satisfaction by helping people and seeing people flourish together, right, as a community. So that's why. Oh, and by the way, happy Women's Month. You're all going to be women soon.
Right on.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Right there.
So many people are losing jobs. How can you help them?
How can we help them? Yeah, that's again one of the. If it's not the financial situation, that's another big challenge that we face here in the legislature. The one thing we're trying to do is to really revamp our tourism industry. So the more tourists that come, the more money that flows, the more money businesses make, and the more businesses can hire people. And while we're facing this situation, we're also trying to, provide also educational options for our people so that they can further advance their education to hopefully get higher job prospects. But in the meantime, it's always about the economy and trying to improve our economy so that we can not only get revenue but also get people to work. Anybody want to add? Yes, sir. Over here.
What are some things you plan to boost your tourism industry?
What are some of the things we plan to do to boost our tourism industry? Well, did you say casino? Yeah. Well, our leaders throughout the years, we try to put things out there to boost our tourism. Now, when you think of tourism, right, you're thinking of people that come and enjoy our beaches, enjoy our hotels and things like that. But there are different forms of tourism. How many of you guys remember the Pacific mini games? Yep. That's a form of tourism, sports tourism. We had athletes, sponsors, chaperones, coaches, managers from different countries in the Pacific fly over to the CNMI, and when they're here, where do you think they're going to buy their food? In our stores, when they buy shirts and souvenirs, little things like soda and all that, that affects our economy. So there's different forms of tourism. What we're trying to do right now is not only promote different activities like hosting sports events. Um, the previous administration tried to do the trip program, which is to incentivize the airlines to bring more tourists over. So we are doing different things, and during this downtime, um, I have colleagues like, for example, our Vice Speaker Joel Camacho from Precinct 4. He beautifies his precinct. Um, if you guys have been up to like Tanapak and San Roque and you see those nice paintings by the side of the road or by Kensington Hotel, that's because of his leadership. So things like that, while things are slowing down, we're trying to beautify the CNMI a lot more so that when the tourists come, it's more attractive. Yes, sir.
How old were you when you found interest being a leader in the government?
Well, when I first actually had interest to run for office, I like to say around 23, 24 years old, but I did not run for office at the time because I had to. When you run for office, it's a big decision, right? You want to talk to your parents, you want to talk to those close to you, your close supporters. And that time was a midterm election, and they felt I wasn't ready. But then 2 years later, when it's the island wide, they're like, okay, you're ready. And that's when it's tougher. But um, yeah, I was about around 23 or 24. Yes, ma'am.
What is the next best step with the Sunshine Casino?
Uh, here you go. Give our floor leader the next best step.
I've been waiting for a question like that. What is your name? Felix? Thank you. Huh? Phoenix. That's a beautiful name. Phoenix. I uh I like that question. What are you gonna do, right? And that is something that we've been deliberating for far too long. You guys pass by Garapan? Do you see that unfinished casino hotel? Right? Is that a concern to you? It's a big concern to us because what do we have here that comes and wrecks our islands every few years or so forth? Typhoons, and we've had some bad luck. We remember we had two super typhoons, right? So our concern is that unfinished building and a super typhoon, or worse, knock on wood, doesn't happen, an earthquake, and this is an eyesore also and a hazard to all the surrounding businesses. So anybody shop at this? You walk around there in Garapan sometimes. You probably go to Cha or you go to Joten, right? And all the shops around there are concerned because if that building were to come down, what would happen to the surrounding businesses, right? So we are in a predicament where we have to look at revoking or taking away the license because right now what is happening to Best Sunshine IPI is they have not been able to pay their dues to the CNMI. Remember, they were supposed to make payments and to be here for this exclusive casino license, and they're not doing that because they said there's the pandemic. Well, there's other small businesses and large businesses that were paying their taxes. IPI just said, well, we're not going to pay basically anything. And is that fair? If they don't pay, but everyone else pays? Yeah, it's not fair. And that's how most of us feel. So the challenge right now with Best Sunshine is even if we take back that license and revoke it, right, and remove it and say, okay, you guys do not have a casino license anymore. Our biggest concern is what to do with that building because again, it is a hazard. It is an eyesore. We don't even know if it can be completed. And the big thing is if it has to be dismantled, right? We can't just put a bomb in there, right, and implode it. You sometimes see that right on TV where they have these buildings and they set things up and they come down and they remove all the debris. But what we have heard, and we haven't gotten the official word from architects and engineers, is that it's too close in proximity to a lot of these businesses, and there may be damage done. So the option is to dismantle it. So Phoenix, like, imagine that how much it costs to build it. Imagine how much it's going to cost us to take it down now. And that means they have to hire hundreds of construction workers to come in and dismantle. And then what do you do with the pieces? We already have a landfill that is what, at 80% capacity? It needs to be, huh? 80%. So it's almost filled, and that's expensive. So we are really in dire straits. But all of us, this whole community, even you guys, this is your future. Garapan, remember, is the main tourist attraction, right? When you think about tourism, we always think of the Paseo de Marianas and all the activities there. And then we have this casino that is an eyesore. So moving forward, Phoenix, what we're gonna do, hopefully, if we all get together and really work on it, we're going to, I guess, look for federal assistance in dismantling that building, getting rid of it, and ensuring. Here's the biggest thing: planning is everything. That building should have had what's called a completion bond. You know what a completion bond is? So whenever you build something, especially under federal guidelines, they have to make sure it can be completed. So if we're going to put something up like that, we have to make sure that there's enough money to complete the construction. So let's say, for example, they pull out. No matter what, that building will be finished because they paid a bond to make sure that it's completed. So that's something that we're going to have to push for. That was originally in the bill that we all signed, and then they took it out, and we voted against it, but it still passed. So do you guys want that casino thing to be taken down? Do you want it finished? Okay. Well, we hope we can be able to do that. But if that is not an option, do we have to take it down? Yes. So those are our two options. Either we complete it or we take it down. It can't just can it stay like that forever? No, no, exactly. Thank you so much for your time.
Also, as much as we like to do something about it right now, too, it's also caught up in a lot of litigation in the judicial, the court. Yes, sir.
What are some laws that help protect our education?
What are some laws that help protect our education? That's a very good question. Education chair, you want to handle that?
Okay, so I'm gonna go back.
Here. Yeah. There you go. Chairman of education.
So our education system actually has a pretty good deal with the legislative initiative that was passed. So there's two types of ways to get a law passed. One is the like through a bill, and then the other is a legislative initiative. So the legislative initiative where is we prepare that here in the House, and then the voters vote on it. And that recent, or maybe a few years ago, the voters voted to ensure that the public school system gets 25% of all government revenue, right? Correct. So that's one law where it ensures that education is getting the appropriate funding. However, remember it's teamwork, right? So the education system gets the money. Now it's the education system that has to make sure that the money is going where it needs to go, right? And then when that doesn't happen, that's when the legislature has to get involved.
I'm just going to add a little bit to that. But we also have the federal laws that protect your educational system, right? Education should be is free, for everybody, and everybody is able to, is should have access to education. So let's take, for example, individuals with disabilities. They have an act called Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that act protects individuals that have disabilities to ensure that they have free and appropriate public education so that they're able to learn. And because of a lot of federal laws that protect you guys as young learners, you have access to this. So it's not just on the local side, but it's also on the federal side, which is very important because they also provide funding for our local public school system to make sure that your teachers have the resources to teach you and so that you can learn and that everybody gets to learn.
So I'm just gonna add on to what Rep. Marissa said, and how it relates. So right now, not too long ago, or maybe long ago, I was actually in your seat right now. I didn't go to FMS, but I went to Hopwood Junior High School. This is your time to start thinking what you want to be when you grow up. When I was at Hopwood, I was like, every family, they struggle, right? So at that time, my family was struggling, and I was like, I want to make sure that when I grow up, I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to struggle. I want it to be a little bit easier for me. So I decided to go to college, right? So after Hopwood, I moved to Oregon. You guys are lucky now because NMC has a really good program. But at that time, I decided to move to Oregon, live with my auntie, and start working towards getting a residency. So my college would be cheap. I would get in-state tuition. You guys don't have to go to that struggle now because you can actually, once you graduate from public high school, you can get resident tuition at many states because of the WICHE program. So that's one way, and you also get, like, there's federal laws that help you with financial aid. It's Title IV funding, which Congressman Ed Probst's wife is the director of financial aid. So if you need money for college, you go to NMC and you check his his wife, who's the director of financial aid. Um, so guys, start thinking about what you want to do. Look into careers because what you do now is gonna make that change. It's a game changer for your future. I'll go here.
How protected are we by the military?
Okay. You want to get this? All right. Okay.
So I'm going to try and answer that. Our covenant is a live document, which means that there's a section there called Section 902, if I'm not mistaken, right? 902 talks. Is that it? And that establishes how we have a conversation with the military, right? And right now, because we're strategically placed, we're a very important island. So we are very much protected by them. They have a responsibility also to protect us. And that's also important because your parents pay taxes, your parents, some of them are in the military, but there's a relationship that our government has with the military, and that is to protect our waters and to protect our livelihood. So we are very much protected by them. And if there's ever a time where we need to sit down and discuss that, our governor is the head of state, so he will have those conversations. That might include also some members of the legislature and those people that he appointed to sit on that arena. Did that answer your question, or did I confuse you just a little bit more?
What do you plan to change now that you're in office?
Okay, so I introduced several bills as a freshman legislator. I know Rep. Marissa also is also a new legislator, and introduced several bills. I'll just give you an example of some of the bills that I recently introduced. So you guys all go to the beach, right? It's mostly clean, or do you see litter at the beaches? What's the number one uh, piece of litter that you see? Bottles, branches, green waste. Okay. Plastic. Any others? Cans. I think if we did a survey, we're probably gonna see a lot of cans, specifically the blue ones. But so one of the bills I recently introduced is it's a beverage container redemption bill or redemption act. So what? Okay, so for example, who cleans up that mess when people just throw their trash at the beach? The mayor's office. That's one. What's another agency that does that? MENA. Okay, you have Parks and Rec also. You have the volunteers like the Lions clubs and different nonprofit organizations that clean it up. But who should really clean up that mess? Okay. So yeah, people that make that mess, but at the same time, the people that make the mess, they're the ones buying the containers. The stores are the ones selling those beverage containers. So the bill that I introduced, pretty much when you buy let's say a black tea at the store, right? It's a plastic bottle. When you buy that, the bill that I introduced, you're gonna pay 5 cents. Not pay, but it's a deposit. Then when you return that bottle to a redemption center, whether it's like DPW transfer station or even the store, they can be a redemption center, you get the 5 cents back. So all the litter bugs that throw their trash at the beaches or the parks or behind the cemetery, those of you that want to hustle and make money, you take it and then you can make money, right? So how much do you think 3 black trash bags of bottles and cans would be if they were 5 cents each? Take a guess. Empty cans, empty bottles. $15. You know, when I used to recycle cans, when I was your age, and I would go to CSS, which is Crew Sanitation Service in San Vicente, and they do it by pound. So it's like a misdeal. You get 1 truckload of cans and they give you $20. But if this bill passes and you're able to collect 3 trash bags of cans or bottles, you're looking about between $250 to $300, maybe more. Right? So just, you can just go behind Payless and you'll probably find a lot. Unless if the Parks and Rec don't beat you to it. But that's a bill. So instead of you guys, your parents paying for, because how does Parks and Rec or the mayor's office, where do they get the money to be able to pick up trash? Anybody? Their operations. From your parents. Whenever your parents work, they have to pay tax. Tax goes to the government. So instead of the government paying up to pick up trash, the people who are creating the trash are going to pay for it. And then those that are helping by picking up the trash, they get rewarded. So we'll see if it passes, but so far, like about Hawaii was the most recent state to pass a law like this, and Oregon State was the first, and it's been working in that state since the 70s. So sorry, that's a long introduction about our law.
So yeah, that's just an example of one of the things we're trying to change is to improve the environment. Yes, ma'am.
Do you plan to pursue new renewable energy now that the cost of electricity is super expensive?
Yes, that's an initiative too that our our PUTC chairman, one of your representatives in Precinct One, Vince Aldana, is working on. We did um, in the past. I forget which term it was, but the legislature did pass something to that kind of set the standard as to where we should be at a certain period of time in terms of how much of it is renewable energy. We're still far from that because they set the goal really high. But yes, and individual residents are taking the initiative to do it. I'm sure you have relatives. You've seen people in your family that have homes with solar panels. You're seeing our street lights have solar panels. The schools, does the middle school FMS have solar panels on campus? Yes, yeah. So right now we're trying to work on seeing if we can increase the capacity so we can allow for more people to get into renewable energy, and it's also something CUC is looking into. All right, somebody was raising up their hand here, sir. Go ahead.
Is medical referral better now?
Medical referral should be a little better now. We it's under the hospital, so they're managing and running the program. Um, better when you talk about better regarding the medical referral program, I guess it's doing okay if a lot of people are going to medical referral. But what we want to do at the end of the day is improve our hospital, our healthcare. Um, bring in all the doctors that we can bring in, so that when our people get sick, we can just handle it in our hospital, and it saves us money in the government as well. Good question. Um, yes.
What is the biggest challenge the CMI face today?
Today, as I mentioned earlier, it's money, the funding. We had close to $500 million. Did you hear that? $500 million. What's half a billion? What's half of a billion? 500, close to, yeah, $500 million of aid when President Biden got into office to help recuperate from all the losses that we struggled with during the pandemic. You remember the coronavirus? Yeah, it's still around, but it's not as prevalent as it was before. Remember when you had to go to school through Zoom? Remember, you had to stay home and get on your computers, and that's how you were learning. So when those things were happening, a lot of businesses suffered because there was a limited time for when the businesses were open. The airports were shut down. The seaport was limited. So a lot of businesses struggled. So the ARPA money was supposed to help not only the private sector, but our government and our people in general in the community. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Do we have enough? Do we have enough doctors to help us?
We, I think, I think we don't. In terms of, we probably have doctors that can help for certain things, but I think what we need more are specialists. So for the first time in a while, we have a cardiologist, which is very important. I think we also have an oncologist too. Oh, okay. So an oncologist, they pretty much deal with cancer-related uh, health issues. The cardiologist pretty much deals with your cardiovascular, your heart health, everything like that. Because one of the biggest non-communicable diseases that we have on island is what? Diabetes. That's one. Um, and we have a good number of our residents, which is unfortunate, that suffer through stroke, and that's all that has to do with your cardiovascular health. So that now that we have a cardiologist, that's one less reason to get referred off island, because we have a cardiologist here. We could use more because Sometimes the line gets long to see that cardiologist and the wait time. Anybody back here, ma'am? You had your okay. Go ahead.
What are your plans for better healthcare?
What are our plans for better healthcare? Chairman, you wanna? There's our chairman of health and welfare, Representative Malcolm Omar.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So that's a very good question. Thank you. Actually, we've had several meet and greet opportunities with service providers, healthcare providers here on our island, both the hospital and the private clinics. So we're working towards reaching an achievable goal to better serve our people. There's so much areas of concern, but like the speaker was saying, CHC now has uh, a varied number of specialists. They've been working so hard to bring in specialists from cardiology, from heart health to cancer patient care related issues, and it's very enlightening now because we have some of our local or our native people who they've gone out to um, for their education, and they've been practicing in the states and in Guam and other countries, and they're coming back now. Like most recently, Dr. Felix Cabrera, and he's back now and he's practicing general medicine for the hospital. So these are just small steps that of course everything's going to be gradually getting there to the big picture, but they are plans in place, and us members of the legislature will work very hard with the private sector care providers and our public hospital to achieve like the bigger goal to provide healthcare, affordable healthcare, and better healthcare for everyone. Thank you.
I think too, what's important, right, when we look at it, if we have more healthy people, then we wouldn't be so dependent on the healthcare system. So it's important now, as young leaders, that you exercise, you eat right, and you help your neighbor, your parents choose, make better choices, right? We know that it's expensive to eat healthy. We know lettuce costs like $16 for, or $8 for 3 hearts of romaine lettuce. So, I think if we take an approach where we try to be more healthy, right, so that we won't be sick. And I think if you look around, a lot of our elderly are suffering from diabetes, hypertension, and maybe it's because we failed to make better choices. But now that you're leading and you are the leaders of our future, you could start having those talks with our manamko and with your teachers, and to eat better food and choose a healthier lifestyle. Exercise is very important so that we are not reliant on a system at the hospital or going away, because it's painful when you have your grandmother who can't get the care here and she has to go and get care in the States, right? You miss her and she misses you. But if we can work together as brothers and sisters and as neighbors and as leaders to encourage a healthier lifestyle and exercise, I think we'll have more of our people healthier and less dependent on a hospital system that is really overloaded, because we failed to make better choices, right?
Also, tobacco is very bad for your health.
Thank you. Yes, I chair Saipan Northern Islands Natural Resource, yes, committee. So, do you guys like to eat rice? Okay. Coconut? All right. What about taro? Do you guys have taro plantation? Do you have in your backyard? I want to see it. Okay, because yes, I want us to have that garden in the backyard, because according to our colleagues or my colleagues here, we have to eat right, no? And also exercise. I exercise every day, as you can see. So when some of us or some of my me and my colleagues went to Hawaii, we visited this gigantic government garden or plantation. So that's what I'm trying to fix up here. Not I'm trying, but we are trying to fix up in Kagman. We have breadfruit trees. Have you seen those breadfruit trees? Yes. So do you like breadfruit also? Okay, great. So we have to get rid of the rice. Either that or we plant more nutritious rice. So yes, thank you.
I
Eat
just have
local and exercise.
I just have one more thing to add. How many of you guys eat McDonald's every time?
Not every time, but sometimes.
Okay, how many times in a week do you guys eat McDonald's? Not in a week? Okay,
Maybe every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks. So fast food, right? It's nice because you just go over there, place your order, and it's available to you, right? But McDonald's, as much as it's yummy and we love their quarter pounders and all of the good stuff that they serve, too much of that causes diabetes because a lot of their food is processed. And when food is processed and it's a high in fat, it turns into bad sugar. And that takes a lot from your body. It takes, for 1 cup of rice, and that turns into sugar, it takes about a week and a half for that to dissolve and get out of your system. But good sugar, it turns into good energy, right? So when you eat McDonald's and when you say, I want McDonald's, maybe have a fruit or tell your parents that, hey, maybe we can go have some taro or go to the public market and get something a lot healthier. I'm not saying not to support McDonald's, but that's more of a treat than it is healthy food, right? Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Good question.
How do they make medicine?
How do they make medicine? Wow, I really don't know. I've never been to that part of the. Yeah, but local medicine, if you want to talk about local medicine, again, like uh, Chairwoman Marissa Flores mentioned, fruits. We have different plants and trees around the island. It is it is something you really got to learn how to do it, um, and it's a very special skill. Not a lot of people know how to make all kinds of local natural healing medicines, and maybe some specialize in one certain kind over the other. Yes, ma'am. Did you have your hands up earlier? Okay, sir.
Is marijuana counted as medicine?
Um, yeah. Well, in some fields, yes, yes. In some fields, yes. Some people actually, uh, if we were to ask them to come up and testify as to the positive effects of marijuana, they'll come up and share their experience. But there are some doctors that say yes. And of course, just like everything else, where they say this is healthy, there's going to be somebody else that comes out and says it's not healthy. But it has its medicinal purposes. Yes, ma'am.
Store products are getting more expensive. Is there anything you can do about it?
Uh, the only thing we can really do about it really is we have the consumer protection under the attorney general's office. They're there to make sure that when the price goes up for commodities, that it's not a ridiculous amount. But the way things at the stores are determined in terms of the price, it's again like the question that came up. Everything outside the CNMI that happens affects us because we import a lot of things. So if the cost of shipping goes up, what do those ships carry? Containers that have food, the sodas, the snacks, you name it. So if the price of fuel goes up, the price of shipping goes up, and in order to order those things without having to lose money, they're going to have to raise up the price. And then when it gets to the stores, in order for the stores to make some money, they have to raise it up accordingly. But in terms of to make sure that the prices don't go too high, we have the Attorney General's office to take care of that. Yes, sir.
So many people are losing jobs. How can you help them?
To keep it general, we're doing our best in what we can do to improve our economy, our private sector, so that, and also to boost our tourism. So the more people that come in, the more people we need to hire, the more people need to work. Sir.
What are what are your plans for better healthcare?
What are our plans for better healthcare? Again, we'll do our best to try to fund the hospital, but the hospital on its own, it's autonomous. So before, whatever money the hospital makes, it goes to the general fund, and then through the budget, we decide how much they get. Now, whatever money they collect stays with them. We put some money in there. But on top of that, the hospital, it's doing its best. It has its own board. They're bringing in, like I mentioned earlier, different doctors that specialize in different areas. So little by little, we are slowly improving. Sir, go ahead.
What are some laws that help protect our education?
As the chairman of education mentioned earlier, one of the laws that was ratified by the people was to make sure that PSS, we increase the requirement for the PSS budget, which went from 15% to 25%. So one of the main things we have is issues we have is funding. But even with funding, at least now PSS, the public school system is at least guaranteed 25% of the budget. Historically, we've always given 25% or more anyways, but with this statute in place, we have to now. We have to. Yes, ma'am.
What are some laws that help protect the rights of our people?
As mentioned earlier, we have Article 12 in our Constitution that protects the ownership of land. So, you have to be Northern Marianas descent from the CNMI to own land. Otherwise, if it's a foreign investor that want to lease land and do business, it's up to 55 years. So at least, even if you have land that you want to lease because you need to take care of your obligations, you want to pay for your children's education, at least for the next generation, the land will come back to your family. So up to 55 years. Sir, what's the we have until 10:30, right? Okay. So, okay, one more question and then we'll wrap it up. Ma'am, go ahead.
Ch- China and Russia has mostly a lot problem. Then is CNMI gonna be middle of it?
Well, we're not really in the middle of it, but we are going to be a part of it in the sense that if it rises to the level of maybe a conflict between the United States, we are a part of the United States and we are very strategically located, because of our proximity to China. So, of course, in some way, we will be a part of the strategy should it come to that situation. So thank you everyone for all the questions. I hope you enjoyed your time. Before you get organized for your tour, is it okay that we do a group photo? All right. So he has okay, one more question. No problem. You got this.
How long can you work here until you cannot anymore?
Oh, okay. Well, in the House and in the Senate, you can run for as long as you want to. And as long as the people, even if you lose a couple times, you can still keep running. But the governor, the mayor, they're only allowed 2 terms. All right. So we good? All right. Everybody come gather this way. For those of you sitting down, you can sit down still. And we'll take the group photo from up here. Okay. So you guys can come in. Okay.